I'm now calling this meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education for Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. I ask that we please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We will begin with public comment. We have 3 people signed up for public comment tonight. So first one is Sunny Ski. I said it right, yeah.
How y'all doing?
Good, how you doing?
So sorry I wasn't here last time. I finally got a haircut in color for the first time in almost 4 years. So I came tonight to support the paraprofessionals because I heard that they were having trouble having their negotiations happening. But I did receive a text message that the lunch aides are now going to receive higher wages, and they finally got some bargaining dates on the table. So I'm pretty happy for the paraprofessionals. I know a few of them had planned to come, but I also know a lot of them work second jobs in order to, maintain life. And that made me think about the teacher's contract. I know we just got to the table finally as well, and I'm hoping that administration seriously considers the needs of the educators. I know that there was an email that went out asking anonymously about the intent and like what would make you stay here, and I know like the number one thing was money for teachers. One of my closest friends has now left us for Haverhill. She received an $8 pay increase as a paraprofessional over there. Their starting rate is far more than here. I also have heard lots of people are intending to go there. So I think the administration really needs to meet the needs of their paraprofessionals and their teacher educators, peoples as well. And if you want to show support, I have all these sweet pins here. If anyone wants them, I got the teacher ones here and I have the paraprofessional ones here. So if you want them, come see me afterwards, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Mali?
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We, as a citizen, proud the Lawrence Public School with the impeccable leadership by Honorable Superintendent Cynthia Parris moving forward. Since her arrival from the Columbia gas crisis to the worst global pandemic, she has shown magnificent leadership. Education of our children never stopped. Honorable Superintendent, fundamental policy and practice, 100 days just listening to our family, community, teachers, school staff has become a permanent practice. Since her arrival, community and parental involvement has been improving. Lawrence Public School on the way to become the best public school in the nation. Facility management improving. The news of building new schools make every Laurentian proud. But our task as a citizen is not over. We must continue to support our great teachers and their union, who is in dark days of the pandemic, never stop educating our children. So much hard work, so much sacrifice. The Lawrence Teachers Union must know 83,000 citizens stand with them and behind them and support them. We demand Lawrence Public School paraprofessionals receive competitive wages. Million thanks to Lawrence Public School, awesome nurses. Thank you in these dark days of the pandemic to be a champion of the first responding. As a great horseman said, education indeed, the best societal equalizer. Excellent public education enable our children to have a better future. We demand the best contract for our teachers now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And the final speaker is Jean Zimbruski.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you. I am president of the Lawrence Administrators Association. We represent deans, supervisors, and assistant principals. I've just come from a meeting, but one of the biggest concerns we have is we have more of our members leaving. Since I was here last time, which was 2 weeks ago, there are 2 more APs leaving. They've left the system, they've left Lawrence, they've been committed, they're veterans. They've wanted to stay here, but I will tell you now that they are teaching in other surrounding communities. So I feel that this is, and our membership feels that this is a situation that we need to work together on. So I'm here to offer our extension again, to work together to stabilize the teaching and the administrators and the environment that's happening in Lawrence Public Schools, so that we retain the people that really want to be and work in an urban setting and want to be here, and again, are very committed. This is their career. So again, I offer that we work together to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment portion of the meeting, and we'll turn it over for the superintendent's report. We have a lot of different items, meaty items, but important items, so look forward to engaging in all of those. So, Superintendent.
Great, thank you so much. I also wanted to share with you all that we are send communication out to families. We'll be sending communication out to families and to staff that we're going to be sending out COVID tests for everyone prior to the break, and ask that folks please use them during the break, specifically right before returning from the break in a week's time. So tonight we have a few items. First, I wanted to share with you all that we are currently engaging in a study with an external consultant about the use of time during the school day. And we're actively exploring how to use student learning time in the most impactful and efficient way, while maintaining our ability to provide high-quality collaboration and planning time for teachers. This is something that's part of the turnaround plan, so ultimately it goes to the commissioner, but it's something that we're exploring, and as we continue to explore, we'll keep you updated and bring you a full presentation on that in the future. I also wanted to share with you an SQR report, and this is at the midpoint of our assessment. I thought it would be good for us to check in now before I share with you ultimately the summary in about a month's time. So I'm happy to share that our strength so far, and this is 18 schools, so it's still preliminary data. We still have other schools that are embarking in this process. But right now, highlight and a strength for us is a positive school culture. We're very proud of that. Our school leaders and teachers and families and kids have worked really hard to maintain and provide a positive school culture. Another strength right now is goals and action plans. That's the hard work again of our teachers and school leaders, really looking at data, and then action planning for student supports. And lastly, another strength right now is leveraging resources. This is the ability, again, of our staff to be able to use everything from funding to curriculum to partners to be able to provide what students need. A couple of focus areas right now, and again, this is preliminary, this can shift a little bit. We have assessment is still in the developing stages, and of course, assessments are what are the tools that we have cohesion around, and I can share that indicator with you more specifically. And then the other one that's new to the rubric that we had not had in 2 years past is what they're calling, this is indicator 11, student academic and development support. It's a new one to us, and as it turns out, and no surprise, it's a developing one for most of our schools so far. So I'm just highlighting a few points here. Expect that we will have a full comprehensive report and review and focus areas, and we'll tie this back to the plan, turnaround plan. We'll also make some connections to the earned autonomy framework, but I thought it would be good for us to say, here's where we are right now, given that 13 schools have preliminary data. This process, you should know, is very rigorous. In my conversations with school leaders, they've all reported the following patterns: that they've prepared very carefully, meaning there's a schedule that they have to prepare and documents that support the day-long visit. At the end of this visit, and I've witnessed myself where there's 3 Folks who come in, they do careful observations of teaching and learning. They also have focus groups with teachers, families, students, school leaders, a variety of stakeholders. And at the end of a very long day, they debrief with the school leaders, sometimes the TLT, it depends, these go on very late. And they share initial findings. Every single team has said that was worth it. It was a lot of work, but they gave us a lot of validating information, and we feel good about our next steps here. So that's with respect to the process. We feel good about that feedback right now. We've shared that with our consultants, the organization that's working with us, and hope to bring you again the full report in about a month's time.
Great, why don't we pause there and see if there are any questions on either of the first two? Pat, I see you reaching for the mic.
Superintendent, have any of the other indicators changed?
Yes, they have actually. So the rubric, as a reminder, will say, let me just quote it from here. It's well-developed, proficient, developing, and then underdeveloped. And what we look at district-wide are patterns. I can also share with you that there's some very specific highlights of some of these reports. And when we share the overall, but let me give you a preview of that. We have one school that started in the developing, and they are one of their schools in the 3-year course, so this is their 3rd year doing it. And this last time, they're in the well-developed every single indicator. When the school received that feedback, it was tears of joy. They had worked so hard for the past 3 years. And I also heard from the team doing these ratings that they had never seen that before. This is unbelievable amount of work the school has done to get there. We also do have some other surprises on the other end where some schools dropped a little bit and are underdeveloping. We have very specific correlations as to why that's happening and monitoring as we go, and of course we'll provide additional supports to those schools as well.
Thank you.
I do have a question. At some point, and I don't remember if it was related to the evaluation, we were talking about the autonomy of the schools. So how these outcomes are going to impact their autonomy?
Yeah, great question. So what we're trying to do here is use the school quality reviews with the earned autonomy framework and see how those correlate and what can we use, from that to be able to say, in this example that I shared with you, that there's a school that needs additional supports. If they were at this very moment, if that framework was well developed and we said, well, here's how you're ranking and here are the areas, then we would say this school needs a lot more support and perhaps needs not so many autonomies, right, as an example.
But, and the ones that, you give an example of one that they surpass the expectations. And I will imagine that some of that is because of the additional the additional support that they receive. They will continue to have that same support, correct?
Correct.
Because otherwise.
Correct. We don't want them to slide back.
Okay.
Yep, we do not want that.
Okay.
Great, and I just look forward to seeing it. I mean, I think the school quality review process has been, at least speaking personally, one of the sources of information that I've found just most helpful, probably, because it does involve the school-based teams. They're seeing classrooms, talking to stakeholders. And then the other thing, I think we heard feedback from some school teams that it feels actionable, like they get information that they can actually work on and see, improvement over years. So look forward to seeing that full report next month.
Yeah, we hope.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Of course. Next, we have our final discussion about the budget. And so, yeah, great. We shared this presentation in our budget hearing last week, and so I'll quickly run through it once more before opening up for any additional questions. We do have your feedback and edits in the budget book that was sent to you all, I think, a couple times already after you've given us fairly good feedback, so we appreciate that. And these are just a reminder of the process. So I'm going to ask Dave to very quickly move through the slides because this is quite redundant at this point, but I'm happy to pause at any given point here. Go ahead, Dave. Yep, keep it coming. Right, pause here. So, oops, sorry, pause here. I think the final number is the one I wanted to show, perhaps the one before, Dave. Oh, I can't see it from there. Maciel, do you have that number that you can read it? For some reason, it's not showing there. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Marcela, if you can just share what the proposed budget number, final budget number is.
Sure, so the final proposed budget number is $230,794,148, and that's an increase of about $18.3 million over last year. Oh, there it is.
Thank you, perfect. So that's the slide to note here. It's also in your budget book. Great, Dave, next slide. And these are goals. Yep, keep it coming. I think we're going to move into the ESSER slide. That's just, yep, great. So here's the ESSER update. As you know, the ESSER funding is not part of the budget book because these are funds that are not part of the local, and that's what's in your budget book. So Marcia, do you want to speak to this one, and you and I can tag team on it?
Sure, so we did add about 13 FTEs for BBEs, about 16 for BCBAs. We have been paying throughout, and this is, I want to add, what we've been paying for throughout all the ESSERs, included projected for ESSER 3 as well. We've been paying for interventionists. We've been paying for about 9 adjustment counselors. And stipends, we've been paying a lot of stipends for PD, custodial overtime. We've also been doing under contracted services. Quite significant amount of PD has gone on to ESSER, or AidNets, DataWise, any PD around addressing learning loss, coaching, and SQR. And then in facilities, as you guys are all familiar, a lot of HVAC work being done. I'll give you a sprinkle of schools, HVAC at Arlington, Frost, Hennessy, Bruce. And we've been doing quite a bit around technology infrastructure and doing switch area networks and WAP points, which I believe are wireless access points, which are also helpful to us. And then in supplies and materials, we've been covering the Chromebooks and hotspots, as well as licenses for Screencastify and Nearpod and some of those licenses that we've needed, as well as supportive iPads and some network equipment and smart boards for our classrooms. And then Superintendent, I don't know if you want to highlight any other expenses that...
Yeah, and again, these are just highlights of the things that are currently budgeted for and we have spent. We will continue to give you updates on the specific of the ESSERs. We still have a couple years worth of that. The one thing that I'll also add here is that in the process of school planning meetings, the school leaders and their teams were very thoughtful about how they wanted to use these additional fundings. And many of them said, look, if we're able to have an interventionist, as an example, for a couple of years, that's really going to help with some of the learning for our students. And they're very aware that these FTEs are short-term infusions to either build certain skills, to build capacity, to do some sustainability work also, like instructional coaches, the funding. And so we thought that was very appropriate, with the understanding that a lot of this is going to have to be foundation work that we sort of recover from, that we sustain some of the efforts and build capacity so that we don't miss it as much when it's gone.
And I will add, too, that since we last met, we did have the full application for ESSER 3 approved. So we'll be able to get going on some of the major projects that were approved there. ESSER 2 is spent about 43%, and ESSER 1 has been spent about 95%, 94%.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
Just make sure I'm clear. So, and again, I appreciate this because I know the budget number, when we show revenue, we show like a certain number, 300 million, and then when we're showing expenditures, it seems smaller. So this is what makes the difference up. Like, this is the money that, we're spending a lot, on these things. And I guess, I'd love to see, because obviously this budget process affects this, and two things. One is, just to clarify then, when we look at these school-specific budgets, they do not include these additional investments, correct? Just want to make sure, okay.
That is correct.
So all the things that schools have asked for are on top of what the core budget here
Correct.
is funding.
So some asks fell under local because they were part of the SOA plan.
Yep.
And then some of the requests fell under ESSER as well. And so that presentation will be forthcoming from us to
Perfect.
give you an update on that and let you know what ESSER 3 is going to look like and ESSER 2 as well.
Perfect, and that was my second question, maybe / comment now since you just said that, where it would be helpful, because we know these are short-term dollars that are meant to support both recovery, but then also like help us address maybe some things that, the schools want to address. So I would say it'd be super helpful when we have the follow-up to have figures in terms of where this falls, in terms of what we spend. I'm interested in like overall looking at some percentages. I think these budget line categories make sense in terms of like also what's going to schools directly in terms of FTEs or programs. I'd be very interested in seeing that. And then not now, because we're just getting these dollars out and people are going to hire, and I would love to think about how are schools with the district support planning for sustainability, because we know those are short-term dollars. You all have said these are short-term dollars. Everyone knows. And yet, when it comes time to say, now we don't have these dollars, I would assume that schools are going to make some trade-offs where they realize there's some things that they actually really need to keep, but then they're going to have to figure out how to keep them. And so that interplay, it's not going to obviously be next month, but it's just top of mind for me. Most important, though, let's get the resources to,
No, and we did some of that already too.
Great.
We made sure we let the schools know what would be covered under ESSER prior to, and we paid close attention to how they were budgeting with that information as well, to make sure that everyone was very well aware that you were going to have to budget for all these things all over again at some point too. We tried our best to make sure we were extremely transparent and also track what was happening with that.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing I'll say is that like some of these investments, I know we're going to see yield just huge benefits for kids. And so that's where I'm saying like we're going to have a conversation about hopefully not just ending them because the funds go away, but how are we going to try to sustain, and by the way, that may mean not sustaining other things. So it's not an easy conversation, but we got to be open to that, I guess, as well. So appreciate the work that's already been done. So any questions at this point? I know we're still
I'll just add that, I had the same comment, and the superintendent kind of addressed that too. A lot of it is on technology. There's a significant investment on technology, and they have an expiration date, right? Technology has to be replaced every 4 or 5 years, so we do have to be thoughtful in planning with regards to. Hopefully technology will help in terms of pricing, and technology gets cheaper with time too. So I think it would be helpful. But I think I was thinking the same thing around technology.
Sorry, did I cut you off midway through your presentation?
No.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, sorry.
Thank
All right,
you.
So we can open it up for other questions. And I know this is the third time that a lot of the members have had to ask questions, but I still want to open it up if there are new questions, additional questions, thoughts, anything like that.
Ventura. I want to thank Messiel and the superintendent. I've had numerous questions, and I've been able to contact them and receive answers, quickly. I've gone through the new budget book that was sent to us, and there were just a couple of items that I was interested in, and we've straightened those out. So I thank you for that opportunity, Messiel.
Always.
And the superintendent, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And Marcel, can we just confirm the budget number? I want to make sure
Sure.
from what I saw up there.
Sure, so
Final
what you have
bill.
up here was the original number. The number in the budget book is the more accurate one. That one there was with the first version of it, and then since then, we've communicated with the city and received updated numbers from the city. So the one you have in the budget book is the correct one.
Okay, so just to be clear, the request for the city is 232,411,371. I'm looking on page,
7, I think, is
well,
what it's on.
actually,
Is it
let's
7
see,
or 8?
2, 3, 6, 7, yes. So that's the accurate number.
The 232,441,371.
Yeah, and that's what we're voting on tonight, okay. Other questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget and send it forward to the city council.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maciel.
Maciel.
Great. Next, we want to preview with you all and discuss the proposed calendar budget for school year 22-23. We can't hear you.
No, I'm close.
There you go.
Good evening. Sure, we wanted to present and discuss the proposed academic calendar for years 2022-2023. We are proposing to start the year for students on Monday, August 29th. And that would bring us to our last day of school for 2023 with a 5 building snow days to August 20th. The discussion around why we're starting what seems a little earlier than this current year was primarily to account and to allow for a longer winter break, to allow for families and students and staff to enjoy a week's worth of winter break versus what would have been a couple of days if we came back the way we started school this year.
I do have a question. So I'm looking here at the calendar. So then they will start on January 3rd? The 4th. Oh, yeah, sorry, the 4th. Yeah?
Right.
Okay.
So then the winter break will begin when students go, the last day on Friday the 23rd would officially begin the winter break for students and staff. And then we would return back on January 2023 on Wednesday the 4th.
Okay.
Great, so the additional days, so can you remind us when we started this year? And like how many are we adding actually on the front end? How much earlier is this than current year?
Not a lot. We started this year, the first day of school for grades K through 12 was Wednesday, September 1st. And then students in pre-K started the 7th this current year, which is a day after Labor Day.
So we're starting a sense roughly a couple of days earlier, and then those days are reflected in January, so we come back a little bit later than we would if it were like that Monday or whatever it is.
Correct.
Okay.
For staff also, it's not a big difference. We new staff started this year on the 25th of August.
Okay.
And returning staff started on the 26th, and those were then PD days, professional development days for staff. For next year, we're proposing the new staff start on the 24th, and then returning staff would return on the 25th, with also the 25th and the 26th being professional development days for staff, for all staff.
I'm curious how, just what kind of feedback you all got, especially when it comes to like the January, extension and things like that. Just what factored into the decision to, that seems like the major shift. I mean, it's just a couple of days, but just curious, like what feedback was like on that.
Sure, I can chime in here. I remember that there was a discussion here on this end also for the consideration given last year. Of course, that no one could have predicted what last year, that we probably needed 3 weeks break in between of everything. And so prior to that, the year before that, we had actually been able to do an extension because we had started so much earlier. So when we looked at how the holidays fell, the winter holidays, we were able to move a little bit, and it felt like just the right amount of time without pushing it too far into June. So we always take into consideration the infrastructure of our buildings and the fact that we do not have AC in all the buildings. So we can't start too early, meaning mid-August, because those are still very hot. And we also have to be mindful about the end. So we accommodate on both ends and see where there's movement there.
Any further comments or questions? If not, I'd happy to entertain a motion to approve the 2022-23 calendar.
So move.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. If you are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then Odanis also has our next item, which is the MSBA LAE update.
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent. This is just a quick update from the district and the project team. We are happy to share that the city and the MSBA have since executed a project funding agreement. The mayor signed in a small ceremony type the funding agreement to the MSBA. That has been executed. We are now in the process, the OPMs and the designers and the construction team, along with the building school committee members, are working with the city to develop the design documents. You'll probably remember from the Oliver project, all these names. We'll be coming before this body to just share with you what the design development documents will look like before we submit to the MSBA. And that submission to the MSBA on the design documents is projected to be June of 2022. We have since also released a bid looking for swing space to be able to relocate our current LAE school students. And we are working with procurement office in terms of when the bids come back. We're expecting those bids to come back in a couple of weeks on the 25th of April. And then we'll have to sit with those documents for a little bit before we can open. And then hopefully we'll have some good numbers and bidders to be able to then award the contract to the lowest bidder.
That's great news in terms of the ceremony. And just want to thank the city council, I know the mayor, for just helping push that over the finish line in a way that is fiscally responsible for the city, but also meets the needs of a whole lot of kids, not only now but in the future. So just want to acknowledge that as well. Any thoughts, comments, questions from members of the board? Pat, go ahead.
I'm jumping for joy for this one. And thank you, Adonis and Superintendent, too, for all your support with this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Adonis.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Odanis. Next and final is we are seeking an extraordinary maintenance waiver. In a moment, Macia will give you those numbers. As a reminder, we've come to you before on this issue, and that is when we are asking to do Chapter 70 funding for maintenance or repairs or anything related to the infrastructure of our buildings, and we do have a case like that. So we're seeking your approval before we move forward to bringing it to DESI and the Commissioner for their final approval. Go ahead, Marcial.
Sure. So just a reminder, the limit is $150,000, which is why we have to come to you for these two items. The two items are a generator for the Arlington School Complex, which will be around $500,000, and then paving for 3 of our schools, the Hennessy, the Breen, and the high school, and that will total approximately $1.1 million.
So the total would be 1.65?
Correct. The total is 1.6.
Questions, comments? Please, Ben.
Marcial, the high school is comparatively new, and we're doing paving there at the high school. Is there any recourse with the construction company as far as, I mean, should things corrode or fall apart at such a short time?
I think she's asking about warranty or something like that. Is that what you're saying? Do we have like a little insurance or warranty period for the
Yeah.
high school? Yeah, we can circle back with you. We can ask Merlino, like, if that expired, how does that work? You know, there were things that, before us, there was a big punch list on the high school things and things that needed to be addressed with the
Exactly.
contractors. I'm under the impression that has expired, that timeline for going back to the contractor, but we're happy to go back to facilities director and ask him.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just, and this total number is obviously, which is, I'm assuming it was the lowest bid? Okay.
So, correct. So the procurement process hasn't actually started for this at the moment because we need, we would need this approved before we can start to procure it, but correct. We'd be following all the rules under 30B.
Okay, so this is an approximate cost.
Correct. That's why, yeah, approximately, yes.
And again, I know the board has taken matters like this up before, but can you just remind us, I mean, so when we see these figures, going to things that are necessary, in terms of maintenance, but when we think our overall budget, like, is this, like, where are these funds coming from? Are these things that we just didn't have to spend in certain areas, or, given the many sort of variables this year, like, budgets are best guess estimates and where we want to go, but obviously things change. If you just talk a little about where is this money coming from?
Sure. So this money, that's why this money usually comes to you around this time of year, because we start to look at where our funding sources are going to be used to finish off our budget. And like you said, budgets are just something we create as a plan. And then once we see what actually comes to fruition, sometimes we have funds left over for projects of this nature, and so that's why we take these on. And that's also part of why we have to come for permission and why these conversations are had this time of year. Because this is the time of year when we would be analyzing to see if we could take on projects like this.
Great. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the waiver request.
So move.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think it passes unanimously, so thank you. And I realized there was one item, I should have said this at the top, and my apologies. This has happened before as well, where we receive a donation, in this case a couple, after the agenda is already published, and so I'm going to ask that we still, be able to listen to these donations, and they were in our packet for folks, but just so we can hopefully approve to accept them on behalf of the district. So Superintendent?
Sure. So the Eastman family is donating $100 to the library educational materials to the high school for the amount of $100. And we ask that you consider this donation and approve it via a vote.
You want to do the other one too, or just?
Sure. Yep. And this is on behalf of the DCU. We've had donations from them before. This is the Digital Federal Credit Union. And this is to support scholarships for our seniors in the amount of $20,000. And we seek also a vote to say yes to this donation.
Do we need to take them separately? Or
I think so,
okay.
yeah.
All right,
The amount is not in the letter.
yeah.
Right.
I do apologize for that, but that was the letter they sent, so.
I'm sorry?
It is, the amount is $20,000, and I know the amount is not on the letter. I'm happy to go back to them and see if they will send us an updated letter with the dollar amount in there. But it was the letter that came with the check, so that's why we know the dollar amount that came with it.
It came with the
so.
check, just to be fair, okay. Maybe just for our record, sure, we can get,
Sure.
just like we did here, just a copy. you know,
Absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay,
it could be the copy of the check.
Yeah.
That would,
Sure.
that will suffice. Yeah.
Sure.
thank you. Okay, so
Oh,
what?
there was a
Oh,
question.
please, I'm sorry.
Just a question, does this donation, the 20,000, would that go to the Alumni Association to distribute? How does that, who distributes that, those scholarships?
Sure. So it actually goes right to upper school principal. That's who the donations are made to. So it goes right into, it goes to the upper school. It does not go to the Alumni Association.
Okay.
Okay.
And then how is it decided how it's dispersed?
Distributing, yeah.
Well, the donation is actually unrestricted, so they make a decision as to how they want to use it, and this year they've decided to use it towards scholarships for the graduating seniors.
I think that's what they do every year, so I think you might
they do.
remember this, but this is a credit union that always donates to the upper school, and so last year's the
Does.
same thing. So it's not that we expect it, we're happy to see it when it comes up again, and the right thing is usually to give it back to the students in the form of scholarships as kids are, getting excited about going to school, college.
Exactly.
Could we have a listing of the students and how much they were given?
Yeah, good idea.
And sort of what the criteria was for
Good
the
idea.
scholarship? Thank you.
Absolutely.
That'd be helpful. Okay, so let's take first the donation from, is that who donated?
Eastman.
From Eastman, Dean Eastman, great. Do I have a motion to accept that donation?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, so passes unanimously. And then, do I have a motion to accept the DCU donation of $20,000 for scholarships?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. And I think that's it for your report, right?
Wow.
All right. Great, so we're going to move over to the minutes here, and we have two sets of minutes. One is for the emergency meeting that was held on March 3rd, 2022, and then one for March 9th. I know for the March 9th, there is something we're going to have to address, and I don't think it's going to be, we might have to re-vote on something, and I suggest we don't do it tonight. Because, and thanks, Pat, for pointing this out to me, that just the way the motion was worded and recorded, it just looks like we voted in one way, but actually we meant the other, where, again, this is to, let me take you to the specific item. It was a double negative,
Double
right,
negative,
right. So I think rather than try to correct it in the minutes, I'm going to bring it back on the next agenda item if that's okay, just to read it in the way that, folks can be clear on the vote.
I think there's an English teacher out there that's grinding her teeth with what I did.
No, and it's not your fault. I mean, it's the motion we need to have ready. Yeah, so I think that I'd rather do that. But I'm happy to entertain a motion for the March 3rd. So I guess what I'm suggesting is, let's not approve the March 9th minutes, because I think it accurately records what we did, but I don't think it was accurate what the will of the board was.
Right.
So we'll revisit those, and then, but I'm happy to entertain a motion for the March 3rd emergency meeting vote, or minutes, rather.
So move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor for the March 3rd, 2022 emergency meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so that passes, and then we will work, Maria, sorry, we'll work with you to, figure out the March 9th, and we'll get the other vote on the agenda. Okay. Any final announcements? Opening up to board members, or?
Just very informally, I wanted to congratulate the theater department at the high school for an incredible show, and I look forward to it every time. I just started going last year on advice from some of the members of this board, and it's incredible. I'm very, very impressed. Very high quality production.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you went. It is fabulous. Our kids are very, very talented, and we'll keep inviting you guys all every year.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further business, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I think that's unanimous. So our next meeting is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022, here, same location. All right, thank you.